Hey guys, in this video we'll be designing and painting an environment from scratch. I'll talk about composition, colors and how to add details, so stay tuned till the end to see how the final image turned out. My name is Victor, I'm a concept artist working in the video games industry, and I really hope you guys will enjoy this video and find it helpful. So let's start! Okay, and the first thing we go through is a really rough sketch. I had an idea to create some sort of settlement maybe and have these houses built on a very inclined plane, which at best is kind of questionable, but you know, we're going for a stylized look in this episode and I think it's gonna work out in the end, we'll see. One thing worth mentioning is that when I start these images, I try to work with opaque brushes, so I switch off or I just don't use the brushes with a lot of pressure sensitivity. This way you can make more calculated decisions on what value and hue to use. And it really, in my case, it requires me to slow down a bit and think more. In the long term, it's beneficial for you to understand how colors work, materials work, how they interact with each other, with the light and so on. So what you've been seeing me doing so far is just plugging in all my main elements and all the planes with flat color. I'm trying to have a graphic look. I'm also trying to separate the planes quite well so that the viewer in just the first couple of seconds understands how the composition works, where is the focal point, you know, sees all the contrast that I intended him to see, and so on. Okay, I'm building on top of what I already have, and I wanted to add a few more wooden beams that are going to support the house. I just wanted the structure to look a little bit more solid, and currently I'm already thinking about the next step, which would probably be adding some light in our focal area just to make things more dramatic. And the first step would probably be to darken the foreground because the values are not, adjusted yet. I still feel that I could, increase the value range in the foreground. I just create another layer on top, make a quick selection based on the ground, and start thinking about the light source. And you can see all the layers are set to normal, so there are no blending options. I just pick a brush that has a bit of pressure sensitivity, and I'm glazing on top of the plane until I reach the result that I like. And the same thing goes for the house. And you also can see me sometimes using the lasso tool. I like to separate the layers, create clipping masks for them, and sort of have a little bit of organizations in the image. I'm also doing the same thing for the front of the house where I have all those wooden beams. It's pretty straightforward actually. As soon as I have my selection, I'm adding the shadow part, so I'm sort of trying to describe the form. I'm also making sure I have my values set right and there is enough contrast in the composition so it reads as a focal point. I'm doing some color adjustments, making sure that the temperatures are right, and I'm moving on to the house in the back, and just in this case probably should make sure that you're not using a value range that is greater than the house in front where your focal point is, so that the other one doesn't grab too much attention from the viewer. And overall, if you're thinking in terms of composition, I wanted the left side of our focal area to be a bit more detailed than the right part. So you can see me adding a chimney just to add some variety with shapes and contrast. And the right side is going to be just a bit more calmer, like shaded, darker, less information there. So overall, it's going to create some sort of additional contrast and a balance to the focal area. I'm just adding a bit more information to the foreground, adjusting the composition, trying to balance the values and make sure everything reads well. As for the Airbaloon, I decided to shade it with a combination of overlay and soft light layers. I just didn't want to repaint the whole thing all over again since I had those patterns already assigned to one layer, and it gets the job done. Maybe it's a little bit less control as when you would just paint it with normal layer settings, but it also works fine. So as you can see, I tried to make it as accurate as possible, added a little bit of ambient light and showed where is the darkest spot and everything else. And that's why sometimes you can see me applying brushstrokes and then redoing them, just because I'm not 100% sure what kind of results the blending options will bring, but through experimentations you can get the job done in the same amount of time, I guess, so it's not a big problem. I'm filling the whole image with different composition elements, story bits here and there, trying to add a little bit more logic to the whole world, like for example adding this road in the foreground that's gonna lead the viewer's eye towards our focal point and things like that. Okay, so finally starting to define the background, and actually now that I'm thinking about it, I really didn't spend a lot of time on the background, and as a result I wasn't completely satisfied with the shapes I created there. For some reason I was really stuck in this image on the focal area, on this house and the foreground and the air balloon. At least I spent some time on the clouds, but overall I think I should have jumped towards the background a bit earlier, just to make sure that that area is also well defined and there is a consistency. But anyway, now I'm doing that and I'm really being economical with the brush work. I'm not adding a lot of information, I just wanted things to read well, and you can see me adding a little bit of mist on the bottom, trying to unify those planes, trying to decide what kind of shape I want to have in the right upper corner of the image. And overall I'll just try and imply that that's some mysterious place that our traveler in the air balloon is heading to. You see me meddling with the overall shape of that huge tree behind the house, just because at some point I thought that it's not gonna fit the composition very well. And overall I'm going through the whole image and adjusting the proportions, adding or maybe removing some details, anything that in general would aid the readability and the composition of the scene. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, it helps a lot. Also, don't forget to ask any questions you have about the process in the comments. I'm trying to answer all of them. Thanks for watching till the end, and I hope to see you in the next one. Coming soon.